I'll talk about just general things. Our ring slings go from 8 to 35 pounds. They they come in 2 sizes. They go we have a small, medium, and then a large, extra large. Really, you know, if you're thinking about measurements and you're thinking about the length, they are very long. They're designed to really give you a lot of excess tail, and I'll show you kind of what it looks like if you're not familiar with a ring sling. It has just 2 sets of rings, and it's you know, a long piece of fabric. So they're sewn together on one side, and essentially what you're creating is a little sling or hammock for your baby to sit in, right? So our ring slings are made with our Tula woven fabric. So most of them that are currently available are 100% cotton. We also have made tencel blend, so it's cotton tencel blended fabric. And so if you're familiar with ring slings and maybe you have seen some cotton or linen ring slings before, what's really great about our Tula wovens is they're extremely supportive. So, you know, oftentimes ring slings are great for newborns, but this extra added strength of the woven fabric makes them really great for even older children. You know, when your child reaches that curious age where they want to turn around and look at the world, ring slings are great for that. A hip carry in a ring sling is great for that. If you have a toddler who only can tolerate short ups and downs, a ring sling is great for that. Or, you know, if you are traveling and you have you're having to sit a lot, ring sling is great for that. So our Tula woven material is nice. I wanted to touch on just really quick notes. Again, I apologize if it's going to be really long, and if you're asking a question, I will do my best to keep an eye on the screen, although I kind of have to go far for demos. So please feel free to ask more than once if it's a really important question. I see some comments, they love ring slings. It's great to hear. It's really a great option. As Kara mentioned last week, ring slings are great for newborns, and I also really like them. Being a work at home mom, when I had a new baby and I was still you know, able to keep them close, it was great to be able to sit with a ring sling. You don't have anything around your waist, so it was great to have be able to hold my baby up high and sit down. It's also my favorite for that reason. It's ring slings are also my favorite for travel, because I feel like I can sit down in an airplane seat with my new baby, sit down comfortably, and then, you know, take them in and out. If you have a reason you love a ring sling, please comment in the comments. Let us know why you love ring slings. Just a quick few things though, because a lot of times people will mention that ring slings have a bit of a learning curve, a little bit sharper learning curve than a buckle carrier does. And I definitely would agree. You know, it does take a little bit of practice to get comfortable with the ring sling and become you know, really efficient with it. But I do find that the time that it takes to practice is really well invested time. One note I wanted to show or point out that is really important. When your Tula ring sling arrives, this is actually one of our cotton ring slings. This is Dinosaur Smile. When your Tula ring sling arrives, you know, this is kind of what it looks like. You know, it has a little bit of a nice moldable fabric, but you can see it's you know, thin, maybe not necessarily looking a super bouncy, right? So compared to, this is a ring sling, a cotton ring sling that I've had for a while, not necessarily one I use often. My children are 6 and 3, so we're not going up as much as we used to, but you can see the difference in these two. So basically what I'm trying to point out is how important it is, one, to wash your ring sling when you first receive it. So be sure to wash it. And then And then, you know, after a little bit of use, you'll notice the fabric does tend to fluff up a little bit, get a little bit more fluffy, more malleable, right? It's a little bit softer. And all that really does is help to get the fabric through the rings. So again, wash your ring sling when it first arrives. You can put a sock or put the whole thing. I actually use those, I'm not sure what they're quite called, kind of like a delicate garment bag, you know, what you would normally put maybe your bra in or your underwear in. I put my ring sling in there and wash it that way. But you can put rings, or excuse me, socks on the rings, and then throw this in the washer. It is cotton washable. Usually do a delicate cycle, and then also steaming helps if you have time to do that, or ironing it. It just really helps to get it soft. Yeah, someone's saying one wash and her tinsel ring sling was super soft and awesome, and that's true. I have actually an example of the tinsel to show. This is actually kind of fun because this is one of the prototypes for the ring sling. So you'll notice this is not actually on our current ring sling. So this was a sample that I really haven't used as much. It is definitely, it's been washed and worn a little bit. And then this one is my go-to ring sling that is definitely a little bit more, you know, you can see a little softer, and it's just so buttery soft. I love this ring sling. So I'll go into a little bit of a demo with it. Again, if you're asking questions, I'll do my best to be looking at the screen. Our ring slings come to you unthreaded, so your rings will be separate and the fabric will be apart. So what I basically do if I'm going to thread my ring sling, basically put this fabric and get my ring sling ready for baby. I put the rings on my shoulder. I'm right-handed, so I like to have full range of motion of that hand. So I put the rings on my left shoulder because the fabric is going to cap my sleeve and inhibit the movement that I can do with this arm. So I take the fabric and I kind of just let it fall into my opposite hand, and then I bring the fabric over to the rings, and I am, you know, I'm not necessarily measuring it at this point, but I am kind of making sure that I'm not leaving it super loose, right? I am taking quite a bit of the fabric and kind of fitting it around my body. I'm gonna pass the fabric through both rings, then I'm gonna open up the rings and bring the fabric back so that the inside of the fabric is showing, right? This ring sling's great for that because you can see it's got black on the outside, black with white hearts on the outside, and then white with black hearts in the inside. I bring the fabric in. And then I take a little bit of time and I'm gonna find the edge of the fabric that's coming through the rings, which is basically the seam. I'm gonna spend a little bit of time. Hi Adina, nice to see you on here. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time to find those seams, and I'm cinching up the top part and I'm fanning out the fabric that's coming through, the loose fabric that's coming through the rings. I spend a little bit of time, I kind of finger crawl my fingers through it to kind of spread it out. The reason I'm spending time to do this, hi Kelsey, the reason I spend time doing this is because I want to make sure that this fabric isn't twisted or overlapping itself, which will make it get caught in the rings as I'm trying to adjust it. So I spent a little bit of time to do that, and I'm going to get it all ready for baby now, right? So fabric is spread. The rings generally should be kind of off, you know, if you have breast tissue, that's definitely something you want to try to avoid. So a little bit high, just underneath your collarbone, is a good place to have your rings resting. I make sure the fabric again is capping my shoulder, and then is nice and spread and not twisted on my back. Spread out. And then I'm also going to start, I'm going to kind of look at the pouch that I have for my baby, and I'm making sure that, let's see, can you leave it threaded? Someone's asking, can I leave my ring sling threaded? Yes, definitely. So like if I'm done using this, you can leave it like this, and the time that I spent to re-thread it and kind of make those adjustments don't necessarily need to happen every single time. So I'm making sure that the pocket I have for baby isn't too big, right? So I'm going to be using a demo doll. If we're thinking about using this as a great newborn carry, a great way to kind of mimic skin to skin, kangaroo care time, a great way to just an adjustable carrier that gets nice and small for your baby. Your sling should be pretty snug before baby goes in there. You can use your arm as kind of a measuring tool to kind of figure out you know, what size they should be, or how much room you need. If you need a little bit of room, you need to loosen this. I'm lifting up my rings and kind of tugging, right? If I need to tighten it, I go the other way. I kind of pull. So that's important to do, right? One, make sure these are spread. Two, make sure the area you have for baby isn't too loose, too big. You have just the right amount, right? Because I'm going to be carrying a newborn, a baby that theoretically doesn't have any trunk control or head control, I'm going to be wearing them right in front, just as if I were holding them in my arms. If they were an older baby who could sit up, I could position them on my hip, right? So I'm going to start with the rings high and keep this fabric cinched up like a little tube of fabric. I'm going to bring baby to my shoulder that's opposite of the rings, as if I were going to give them, I was burping them. Here's my baby. So I'm bringing them to that opposite shoulder. I'm using my forearm and my hand to support them with one hand. And then the free hand, which is the side with the rings, I'm going to take it inside of the fabric. See this too? I'm not concerned with the ring sling. I'm really just focused on baby and where I'm going to place them on my body, right? So I'm going to bring baby, let's say this is a newborn, they're likely going to have their little legs still in a natural froggied position, kind of already mimicking that ideal M position that we want to get in an ergonomic carrier. So I'm going to just reach my arm in, bring baby's legs into the fabric, and then again, I'm not focused on the ring sling. I'm focused on getting baby into the carrier, right? So I'm switching hands, supporting their weight, and I'm making sure that baby is in a position that they would be in if I were just holding them in my arms, right? I just want baby centered on my body, close enough to kiss, and kind of their legs hugging my body in a kind of froggy natural position that they want to lay in. Now before I'm ready to start spreading the fabric over baby, before I do that, I check my rings. If, let's say, they have fallen down too low, I am going to make sure that before I spread the fabric, I give them a little bit of a tug up. The reason I do it now is because it's much easier to move that fabric before it's all spread out, right? So I kind of check my rings at that point, okay? Now I'm going to reach underneath my arm where the fabric is a little bit more spread out. I'm going to find the top edge of the fabric. I'm going to pull that up over baby, and I'm going to bring it up to their neck. So the fabric is just supporting their neck. Now I'm supporting baby's neck with my forearm and supporting baby with my forearm and my hand. And then I'm going to take my left hand for me, the side with the rings, and I'm going to reach underneath baby's leg and start to make their seat, okay? Now, think of your ring sling in 3 sections. There's the lower third, the middle third, and the top third. That lower third, that edge, shouldn't be on baby's bottom. It should actually be going from one knee to the other knee, right? So I'm bringing my thumb. This is what I'm doing inside the ring, or in the fabric, which you can't see. I'm bringing my thumb and I'm running my fingers from one knee, my hand from one knee to the other knee, and tucking the fabric in. So that's what I'm doing. See what I'm doing? I'm bringing the fabric in from one knee to the other. And what that did, my rings are, sorry, I'm gonna adjust because this is a little snug on the bottom. You get overzealous when you're doing this live, so my ring sling is a little tight for my newborn. But, so yeah, so I basically am bringing that fabric in. I'm not concerned about necessarily bringing it up super high and tucking it into baby's diaper or anything like that. I'm really just trying to make sure there's fabric between me and baby, and it's going from one knee to the other. If you have questions, feel free to ask them, but they are a little delayed, so I apologize if I get ahead of your question. Okay, so now I'm ready to tighten the ring sling fabric. And you can see, this is not a real baby, so I'm gonna let go. You can see that because I started with the ring sling already nice and snug, baby really is, your ring sling doesn't need a lot of adjustments, and baby is pretty much almost where you want them to be. Yes, like sitting in a hammock, as Laura says, and that is really the way I like to think of it. One example I often use is you don't want baby or the fabric to mimic your baby sitting on the edge of a chair. You really want them to mimic them as if they were sitting in a hammock. And so they're kind of, their whole thigh to the back of their knees is supported. And the middle third is coming and supporting their back, and then the top third does, you know, that support for the head. So this is baby. If someone else is asking if your newborn can go in here legs out, and yes, I personally do legs out. It's totally fine to do legs in or legs out. I personally do legs out because of the way that I cinch up the fabric. I find that I don't have too many issues with doing that. Obviously, there are some babies who really are, you know, really are held up tight and don't want that. So you can essentially use their bottom as a guide, but you really would be thinking about really, when you bring those legs in, you would have to be a little bit more conscious of making sure that the weight of their body is resting on their bottom. But yes, you can do legs out with a newborn and legs in. Just a personal preference for you and baby. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten my ring sling. Now, this is a really, I'm spending a lot of time talking about these little sections because this is a common issue that a lot of people say. They say, oh, I pull on my rings and it's not going anywhere, right? So if you're pulling the whole thing down, you're actually not really getting a lot of leverage or a evenly tightening up your ring. You actually want to go in sections. So if you're tightening this top half, that's the inside of this extra fabric. The middle third is this middle part of the extra fabric. And then the bottom third is this outer part. So when I'm tightening, I start from the top, right? Because I want to get baby's heads tightened, or the fabric around baby's heads tightened so it can support them. I bring the extra loose fabric over to see what I'm working with, and then I'm gonna grab just the top edge and I'm gonna pull across me and baby. If I get to a point where this is really hard to pull, I'm actually gonna use this arm that's supporting baby and lift them up a bit, because lifting that pressure is gonna get a little bit of pressure off the rings and then give you some more room to snug up. Then I'm only gonna give a touch of a tug in the middle, unless I have a lot of extra fabric, which in this case I don't. I'll give it a little bit of a tug in the middle, and then again, a little bit of a tug on the bottom. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time making this super duper tight, because what that will do is cause this edge to get really snug for your baby, and possibly get uncomfortable and want to say, hey mom, I don't like that, let's get out of this thing, right? So we don't want this edge to be super tight. But as you can see, I tightened this top edge quite a bit, but the middle and the bottom I barely touched. I just did a couple tugs. If you find as you're walking, because it can happen, you know, especially if you're adjusting in a rush, or adjusting from a place where this carrier's or your ring sling has already been kind of loosened and tightened quite a bit, you find that you have a little extra fabric as you're walking around. Again, you know, if that kind of wiggles out, bounce to give yourself a little bit of relief of pressure, and tighten in sections. Again, top is tightened by this, middle is tightened by this section, bottom is tightened from the outside, right? And you can do that. If you have a newborn and you know they're really short, they're really small, so you have a lot of extra fabric up here, one little trick that a lot of people really love to do is they take this little extra fabric and you can twist it and kind of create a little bit of additional support for baby's neck, head. And it also helps to, you know, if you do have a lot of excess fabric, bring a little bit of that fabric in to tighten. If you're feeling pressure up here on your neck, it's likely that you need to spread the fabric on your shoulder and again cap it, right? So you're working, and then holding that, having that nice and spread on your back is also going to help to distribute any pressure that you're feeling or weight that you're feeling from baby. So so that's basically it. You again, you know, as I said, you could put that fabric there if your child is bigger and you don't have that much extra fabric, or if you're concerned about them touching these rings, you can use the fabric. I don't do anything fancy to make it look pretty. I literally just plopped it in there, and then I just spread the fabric over the rings to shorten it or to protect baby from the rings. And then what about pressure under your arm? Carrie, are you talking about this arm? Pressure under this arm? It's gonna take a minute to maybe get that reply, but I'll try to watch for it. But yeah, so that's basically it. Baby generally is going to be in a ring sling. They're gonna be upright, like as if they were being held in a buckle carrier. You're feeling pressure here. If it's likely pressure that is happening from either over tightening, so like if you know, again, if you're really nervous about the sling and you kind of are working to get this super duper tight and you're feeling pressure here, that could be happening from that. If it's bothering your underarm, so like I'm large chested and I have to be conscious of how much fabric I get, webbing or any fabric I get here. So if it could be, you know, if that's the kind of pressure or discomfort you're feeling, it could also be because this is rising too high, right? So if that's the case, again, you know, I just over tightened it, so I need to loosen them. Again, I'm lifting that ring to loosen, bouncing baby a tiny bit to give myself a little bit of extra room. Yeah, and so, and then what I would do is if you're feeling like you're getting lots of fabric here, one, you could fold it. That's just what I'm doing right here. I'm folding it down so it's not right underneath my armpit. And then the other part you could do is really pull down the fabric and use your shoulder as a counterbalance to kind of get the fabric away from this part here. But if it's feeling tight, like constriction, that's likely because you have your ring sling just too tight on you, or it's too high, is my guess. So someone asked about nursing. So in any situation where you're baby wearing and hoping to feed your baby in your carrier, really try to make sure that you're comfortable with your ring sling or your buckle carrier, whatever you're using, and you're really comfortable nursing. So, you know, make sure those two relationships are you're confident, comfortable, you and baby understand what you're doing. And then thank you for participating. And then try to combine the two. It's really helpful. I know with taking it back to the whole idea of a newborn in a ring sling, one of my first outings when I had my second son was going to the park to get my 3-year-old who had been pent up and, kind of left to his own devices while newborn was arriving. We did a lot of park trips, and at the park there's not always a place for you to sit, for you to nurse, and so I was able to do it in a ring sling. It was really a great tool for that, because this can actually act as like a little bit of a cover for that. So anyway, so if your baby and you are comfortable ring sling and nursing, and baby has head control, it's really easy to loosen your rings and nurse baby in the upright sitting position. So I would bounce again to remove some of that pressure and weight off the rings, and I would loosen a tiny bit. Now you're gonna support baby while you're doing this, because ultimately you're loosening it to the point where there will be some movement. So you wanna start supporting baby's weight. And then let's say I'm planning to nurse on my right side, because my rings are on my left, then I would loosen, and I'm actually gonna pull just a tiny bit. I'm pulling that hand that's supporting and bringing baby towards the right side. And then I would loosen until the point that I get baby at the level of my nipple, so that I'm able to then, take out my breast, however you do that. Hopefully I have a button-up shirt or something looser than this top. And then I would be able to latch baby on, use this if again, like in that park situation, I would use this as a cover-up personally, and then, I can nurse. I would likely not necessarily be able to take my hand off, but I might be able to likely switch and be one-handed, which is better than nothing, especially if you're trying to hold the hand of a 3-year-old at the park, right? So you can nurse in this position. Now, again, and then when you're done or baby falls asleep, you would unlatch and then again bounce and use the rings to help pull the ring sling back and baby back into the center. And then I would go ahead, make sure we haven't lost our seat, and I would go ahead and bring that extra loose fabric to the rings so you can see how much I have to work with, and I'd pull across, tug and tug, right? That's how you would get baby back. If you're planning to nurse maybe a smaller child or a child who isn't quite comfortable yet with a sitting upright position for nursing, or if you need a little bit of extra space because you're bottle feeding, you can put baby in, for lack of a better term, reclining position, but again, they are not horizontal. They're not like laying flat in the rings sling. To do that, you basically would think of them as almost in a recliner, right? They're just kind of slightly going back, or a recliner in an airport seat, and just slightly going back, turn to the side. And I'll show you how to do that. You, again, are gonna lift baby up to remove some of the pressure and lift this top ring to loosen. And then I'm kind of ignoring the ring sling. I'm taking my hand inside and grabbing baby, and I am gonna act as if I were about to take them out, but what I'm going to actually do, I'm moving this thing just so you can see, but normally you would just have this still down. I'm actually going to position them as if I were about to get ready to nurse them, right? But they are almost in a seated position, and they're on their side, and then what I'm doing is I'm really making sure that this fabric is really acting like a hammock, and baby is supported. Both legs are supported, both knees are up, and they're fully supported and resting in the hammock, right, of the carrier. And then what that does is it really just kind of provides a little bit of support, or if you're not able to sit, it kind of gives you a little bit of freedom to nurse your baby in a more of a reclined position without really without having to sit down or take them out of the ring sling. And again, this is another thing that I did quite a bit with my second child, because I had to, because I had another child to take care of or be active with. But this position is, again, more of kind of an aid. It's not totally hands-free. You would want to try to make sure that you're supporting baby's head and bulk of their body, but you would have maybe one hand free to, you know, grab a child's hand, or, you know, take care of a few things that you're doing while you're nursing. And then again, once baby was done, you would unlatch and return them back to the spread squat upright position. Okay, so this is I think I covered everything I wanted to cover. It's a lot of information. You know, I will try to comment down here, which is kind of my highlight points, but really things I'll mention just as as I'm wrapping up. Be sure to wash your ring sling. Make sure that it's capping your shoulder and that you've made sure that the edges are nice and spread as much as possible before you put baby in the carrier. Start with the fabric in that tube position, and then when you're tightening your sling and you're getting, make sure it's knee to knee, and then when you're tightening your ring sling, rather than pulling down and the whole thing, grab in sections. And thank you all. I'm seeing lots of comments of saying thank you and so helpful. I really appreciate those that stuck it out, because this was a long demonstration. And you know, the ring sling, I put out a poll and asked, do you want to see ring slings? Do you want to see back carries? Do you want to see newborn stuff? I did ring slings today, but I'll definitely do another one with back carries. I'll definitely do another one with newborn, infant insert, free to grow, fit tips, all those things in the future. So I really appreciate you all hanging out. If you have any comments about blankets, blanket releases, which is what I talked about earlier, if you have any comments or questions about ring slings or just demos that you want to see in here, please leave those comments. Even if we don't get to respond or like everything, we definitely try to do our best to check back and read, and we really appreciate any feedback that you're giving us. So we take it all in. Thank you so much, everyone, for hanging out, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Bye, everyone.